Mario, once again with MIA Microflight. Today is Thursday, January the 29th, 2026, and I am so excited to share this video with you, the viewer. If you're somebody that wants to do something similar to what I am going to show you here. Now, I've gone online, as I said in my previous video, where I was asking if anybody knows where the signal injection is. I mean, I actually found it, as I typically do with all these things. If I look at these things long enough and put my own 2 cents and logic, eventually, I find these things. It doesn't require a genius to do this, just a little understanding how these things work. AI, if you go to AI and you type via Google and you say, can I repurpose this ESC on this particular RC C189 as a standalone ESC? It'll tell you that you can't because it uses some proprietary code and components. Bullshit. Pardon my French. Because you can. This is a regular speed control, and I knew that these are regular speed controls that I use, and it's just a matter of finding the how to turn these on, and two things: how to turn it on, that's important, and how to send the signal, where to send the signals to. Now, I already explained in my other video, long video, that this flight controller receiver is already marked B+, B-, and I said that these 4 pins right here, the first 2 pins are active all the time when the switch is off here. So this switch turns on not only the receiver, but it also turns on the flight controller. I just discovered this just thinking about this, why there's an extra 2 pins here, and I'll keep explaining this in this video. So when you turn this on, that V+ voltage from the 2-cell battery, this is the full battery voltage, it gets transferred to these other 2 pins. But you'll notice these 2 pins are not just on this board here, but they're also connected via this 6-pin connector to the ESC. So in my previous tests, I was not taking that into account, that you need to turn this on. This needs to be. I was thinking, just by the mere fact that this is already connected to the battery, this was already powered, but it's only powering it's only powering the side of the MOSFETs that control the motors, but it's not powering the chips. And in order to do that, you have to turn those chips on, and the only way to do that is by shorting or putting a switch, like in this case here, shorting these 2 other 2 pins here to these other 2 that are marked B+. 4 of these pins, when this is on, are fully engaged to the B+, and these 2 here are the B- or the ground. So what I just did, and I was jumping for joy. My wife is like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" that I shorted these 2 pins to create a switch from the B+ here to the it doesn't matter, because these 2 pins right here are set to B+ regardless that they're shorted, but these other 2 pins next to the 2 pins are not. And so what you have to do in order to turn this ESC and repurpose these ESCs as a regular ESC, which is my excitement, because you can do this, and I knew you could do that. It's just a matter of finding, I already knew that the pinouts, the signals are coming in through here, because this board tells you right here, in a sense, motor and motor. So those must be the signal that's coming from this receiver. So I decided to go back to my original tests using just a servo tester that puts out a pulse width modulation signal through this S connector here, and a ground. So I connected this to the ground, which I'm going to do in this video. First of all, you need to turn on the you need to plug in your battery. I'm using just a 2-cell battery here with my own connector to that, to the same points that the original battery is connected to. So I'm going to turn this on. All I need here is a switch. I'm using a jumper here to create that on function to this to the chips that require a voltage in order to turn this on, and you'll hear it beep beep. So I'm going to turn it on. Be careful, because these other 2 pins, this further pins, the ones that the very pin at the very end here with the second one next to it are ground. So these 4 pins are plus. So I'm just grounding, or shorting rather, this first one with the third one. Let me see. The first one with the second with the third one here. And you just heard beep, beep, beep once again. That means that these are ready. The speed control is on. Now the signals for these are kind of are kind of reverse here. The one that you would think is closest to this motor right here would be this pin right here, but it's not. It's the opposite. So bear that in mind, and I'm going to show you that in this video here. So my ground, I'm connecting my ground. I have 2 wires here. So here, let me just remove this one so it's not confusing here. My ground here, I'm connecting it to my ground on my servo tester. You can use a servo tester, you can use a receiver, but you know, I will eventually put this plug this to a receiver, my own receiver, and control it that way. But for the purposes of testing, just this is just fine, because this is pulse width modulation on this blue lead right here. Now, if I touch my blue lead, if I connect that to my, let me pull this out because it's going to turn on here, one of the motors, once I plug this to the very end here of this pin right here. Now I said that these are in opposite directions, so that very end of the pin is going to turn on my main motor, or the main rotor here. Let me lower this so it doesn't engage with the propellers. So let me once again, this is I'm doing this kind of, there we go. It just turned on. It just armed, and there we go. Come on. So let me pull. Okay, so I am using my pulse width generator here. Okay, so that is on this particular pin right here, the very first one at the very end of this strip right here. Now, if I go to the other side and inject the pulse width modulation signal there, it's going to you can hear that beep beep on the tail end. It's going to turn on the tail end. Come on, baby. Let me plug it back in. Make sure that, God, this is so difficult with these little leads here. Okay. Let me connect back my ground to my, because the ground needs to be connected. You need a ground and a signal here from this servo tester. You don't need the plus here because I'm not powering this directly through there, and you shouldn't plug this directly from there because this is high voltage here. The 2-cell battery in this will burn. This operates on 5 volts, no more than 5 volts. And that's why I have this separate battery here, 5 volt or just a 3.7 lithium polymer. Okay, so let me plug that to the tail signal input pin, which is this guy right here. Okay, I just heard a beep. So that tail rotor should kick in, and there we go. Okay, very happy camper here. I mean, I knew that you can repurpose this. I mean, there's no reason why not. You know, this is just a regular ESC, regardless of what AI tells you. So I don't trust AI. I don't trust, you know, these things. You know, even the information that is under, you know, if you search for Google and try to find a pin outside, it's not going to give you. So I'm giving you all that information right here. Some of you may already know this if you're electronic techie savvy, but this is more for the people that don't know this and are somewhat familiar with electronics. Just be careful in your connections. Once again, let me unplug all this right here. The speed control alone right here, assuming that you can plug it here as I did here with this external battery connector, so I can use my own batteries, or you can just, if you have just the standard, just plug it to the original plug, which is connected to the same points that I've connected this connector here. So it doesn't matter. What you shouldn't do is plug that battery and then plug, you know, a secondary battery here. That's a big no-no. uh, either one, the original or this one here via this connector, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to plug that battery there, but you'll notice that without turning this controller on, this is not going to function. It's going to be dead here. This is ready to receive the signals, but without you turning on this receiver, or not receiver, but this 2-in-1 speed control. That's the reason why they call it 2-in-1, because it's 2 speed controls in one. You plug that into the first, second, and third pins. You can hear beep, beep, beep. So that arms it. I'm going to try to put some kind of an LED indicator here so that in addition to the beep, 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 it lights up to let you know that this is on, or to let me know that it's on. But if you want to do the same, you could do that. Just put an LED in series with one of these switches in between this switch and that pin right there. You can certainly put an LED with some kind of a resistor to ground once again to the first and the third pin. Beep, beep, beep. So the easiest way would be to put just a little switch that you can switch it similar to this switch that they have here. Or you can repurpose this if you're not going to use this board right here. Just remove that switch and connect that to that. Okay, so beep, beep, beep. Now the pulse generator, which is this servo tester. Once again, separate battery to provide voltage to this one, so you don't need to plug a voltage on this side here. Connect the ground of this one right here to the ground of this controller, which is this pin on the other side, the first one on the other side right there. That's ground. Those two outermost pins are ground, but connected to the furthest one. Plug it to the ground, and then you can connect the signal to either this pin on one end or the other end. This one right here, like I said before, it turns on the main motor, and this one on the other side turns on the tail motor. Okay, I think it's clear by now that you can certainly repurpose this. I don't have to remove anything here. In fact, what I am going to do, let me just undo this so I don't make a mistake here. What I am going to do now that we know that is I am going to use my own receiver so that I can send the signal to this point right here, which is for the main motor from the main throttle, and send the signal from the rotor to the rotor channel. And via my transmitter, I can do the mixing between my main and tail rotor. Now, for anybody that's familiar with just tail gyros, you can introduce a tail gyro in between the signal from the receiver channel 4 and this point right here, which is this point right here, which is for the tail control, so that the gyro does the stabilization of the tail. That's all I want here. I just want tail stabilization, and I can certainly now I have full control of the throttle. I'm not using barometers. I'm not using any proprietary software. I'm not using any of this stuff right here. It's unfortunate that I can't use this just a standalone receiver. If I invested time to reverse engineer this, I can probably figure that out. But I'm not going to use this. I'm just going to use a regular receiver, about just a DSM receiver that matches my radio, my orange transmitter that I've used, for so many years, and it's my trusty transmitter. Tail gyro control, I'm probably going to use one of my own MPU 6050 with an AT1085 processor. Very much what I'm using on the Bumblebee, on the MIA Mini Rebel, and my own helicopters. I'm going to employ that to do that. However, because this is a collective pitch flybarless setup, the only way to stabilize this without sensors is to introduce weight on tip of the blade. So I am going to modify these blades with tip weights. so that they provide gyroscopic stability on these blades, and then I can just use just a regular collective pitch cyclic 120-degree setup on my transmitter, and I believe that should do it. Cool. Let me know what you think. Share this video with other people. Put it in if you belong to an RC group thread or comments. Share this video, please, because I have not come across anything similar to this, and that's the reason why I'm sharing. I'm very excited because I just discovered that, and I should have known this, but it was late when I was doing this. I was getting tired, and I just gave up, and I said, you know what, I'm going to stop. Come back in the morning and I will figure this out in the morning. And as I said in my other video, I eventually figure these things out, with a little time and just patience and some rest. So Mario, once again, I hope this is helpful to you. Absolutely, you can certainly repurpose that. It's a standard ESC. You just need to turn it on with a switch. Let me know what you think.